CP Radhakrishnan actually won. That shows that NDA both tactics and strategy and its consensus among its allies actually all come forward, and we could also see cross voting across some good number, say whether it is Aam Aadmi Party and others. So from that perspective, now see the important contentious issues which have been resolved by the vice presidential elections are over now. Time has now come, because now the people of the country would see that how should function in terms of constitutional norms and practices. So now there are more expectations from the people, from the House, from the opposition, from the government. So I believe that in view of the vast and rich experience of the newly elected vice presidential candidate, there would be more say commonness in terms of raising the voices on issues revolving policies than in politics. So from that perspective, I would see that the seasoned and mature leadership of CP Radhakrishnan ji would be able to handle the critical issues of the House whenever it meets in the course of time.
जी बिल्कुल। हितेश जी, हमने विपक्ष की बात की कि उनकी जो उम्मीदवारी थी सुदर्शन रेड्डी जी की, उसको लेकर भी कई तरह के सवाल थे, किंतु परंतु थे। चर्चा ये भी थी कि पॉलिटिकल हो, नॉन पॉलिटिकल हो, विपक्ष में ये चीज़ें थीं, तमाम सवाल थे। लेकिन मैं एनडीए के बारे में आपसे समझना चाहता हूं, जानना चाहता हूं कि इस चुनाव में भी एक प्रकार से एनडीए ने, बीजेपी के नेतृत्व वाला जो राष्ट्रीय जनतांत्रिक गठबंधन है, उसने एक प्रकार से चुनावी प्रबंधन की दृष्टि से, चुनावी मैनेजमेंट की दृष्टि से एक बार फिर से ये साबित किया है कि एनडीए ना केवल एकजुट है, नाम उम्मीदवारी का मुद्दा हो, हमें सुनने को नहीं मिला एनडीए में किसी ने सवाल उठाया हो। गठबंधन का दायरा बड़ा है, ये वोट कहां से आए वो अगले कुछ दिनों में पता चलेगा। इसको आप प्रबंधन को कैसे देखते हैं, जो एनडीए, जो बीजेपी का, चाहे उम्मीदवारी की बात हो या बात मुद्दे रखने की हो या सबको साथ लेके चलने की हो?
देखिए, एनडीए आप कहीं की ईंट कहीं का रोड़ा, भानुमति ने कुनबा जोड़ा, ऐसा समीकरण नहीं है। वो भारतीय राजनीति का स्थायी तत्व है। उसके सामने वाले इस तरीके से दिखते हैं कि बेमेल किस्म के गठबंधन हैं। और एनडीए की इसका जो आपने कहा, उसके पीछे दो तीन बड़ी वजहें हैं। एक तो जो भाजपा की अगुवाई में जो सरकार चल रही है, उसने एक ऐसा समीकरण रचा है कि जिसमें राज्यों का भरोसा है और केंद्र की योजना है। मैं दो चीज़ें बताता हूँ कि आप आज जम्मू कश्मीर भाजपा के लिए फेवरेबल नहीं रहा, मगर भाजपा ने पिछले कुछ समय से वहाँ जो जड़ें जमाई हैं, उसके पीछे आपको क्या चिनाब ब्रिज नहीं दिखता? वहाँ की महिलाओं के वो वीडियोज़ नहीं दिखते? अगर वो आप देखेंगे कि लाल चौक की तस्वीर बदली है विकास से, उसी तरह से दिल्ली का अगर समीकरण लें, जिसमें भाजपा का पूरा घनघोर विरोध करने वाली एक सरकार थी, वहाँ आयुष्मान कार्ड चल जाता जब राजनीति के पत्ते नहीं चलते। इसलिए जनधन योजना हो, किसान योजना हो, पीएम किसान योजना हो, उज्ज्वला योजना हो, केंद्र की ऐसी योजनाएं हैं जिनमें राज्य के नागरिक बहुत संतुष्ट महसूस कर रहे हैं, इसलिए भरोसा वहाँ पर जुड़ रहा है। ये मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट है, एक सिनर्जी क्रिएट हो रही है। और इसमें लोग चीटेड या ठगा हुआ महसूस नहीं कर रहे कि अगर वो कह रहे हैं 2 इंजन की, तो पूरी जिम्मेदारी ले रहे हैं, उसके लिए करके दे रहे हैं। और जो उनसे अलग हैं, वहाँ पर भी निंदा का भाव नहीं है। अगर आप वास्तव में लोगों के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, बड़ी बड़ी चीज़ें डिलीवर हुई हैं। जैसे उड़ीसा के साइक्लोन को याद कीजिए, और उड़ीसा की जो सरकार थी बीजू जनता दल की, राजनीतिक विरोध हो सकता है, पालेबंदी, मगर कभी भी मर्यादा नहीं लांघेंगे, ये भी साफ दिखाई दिया भाजपा ने वहां पर कंटेस्ट करते हुए भी। राजनीति की अगर ये मर्यादा और ये समीकरण आप लंबे समय तक लेकर चलते हैं, कटुता को नहीं पालते हैं, तो आपकी एक स्वीकार्यता 1 राज्य, 2 राज्य, 3 राज्य बढ़ते चलते हैं। और आप जो अजात शत्रु शब्द की बात कर रही थी, हाउ टू विन ओवर द राइवल्स, उसका ये सूत्र है कि एक एक कदम बढ़ा के भरोसा जीतना होगा। भाजपा ने वो भरोसा जीता है, खाली ये चुनाव नहीं जीता है। और उसके केंद्र में जो अंत में तो यही देखा जाता है कि नेता कौन है। तो आज इसकी अगुवाई अगर नरेंद्र मोदी कर रहे हैं, तो उनके जैसा लीडरशिप, उनके जैसा विज़न, उनके जैसा मौके पर चौका लगाने वाला व्यक्ति, नए नए नगीने खोज के लाने वाला व्यक्ति, और वो अकेले नहीं कर रहे, वो सबको साथ लेकर ये काम कर रहे हैं। अभी जो प्रशिक्षण वाला जो मैं चित्र देख रहा था, वो व्यक्ति जो नेतृत्व कर रहा है, वो सबसे पीछे की पंक्ति में बैठ के काम कर रहा है। अगर वो पीछे की पंक्ति में बैठ जाता है तो सहमति कहीं दिक्कत आती ही नहीं, आगे वाले सब कहते हैं कि हाँ, मुड़ के देखते हैं कि हाँ ये, इसलिए एक नाम आता है और उस पर सहमति बन जाती है। दूसरी तरफ जो नाम आया सुदर्शन रेड्डी जी का, राजनीतिक विश्लेषकों का तो ये मानना था कि कच्चा खेल गए, आपको इसमें अच्छा खेलना था मगर आप मौके को चूक गए, आप बड़ा नाम ला सकते थे। और उसमें कुछ और समीकरण बड़े दिलचस्प थे जो चर्चाओं में रहे थे और अभी कई दिन रहेंगे।
Certainly, the opposition will be introspecting on what went wrong, where things went wrong, and especially since the cross voting has also taken place in favor of the NDA nominee. But the biggest news of the day is that the NDA nominee, Mr. CP Radhakrishnan, won with a handsome margin, 452 against 300, which the opposition candidate polled. He will be now taking oath as the 15th Vice President of India on the 12th of September at 11 a.m. President Draupadi Murmu will be administering the oath of office to the 15th Vice President, Mr. CP Radhakrishnan. As we draw close to the end of the day, we've had significant, remarkable, engaging discussions on the strengths that Mr. CP Radhakrishnan brings to the office of the Vice President. He will also be ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So the kind of personality, the kind of expertise and the experience that he has in building consensus across party lines. So of course, goes without saying, there are huge expectations from him in ensuring that there is debate, there is dialogue, there is decorum in parliamentary functioning, and he has that responsibility also going forward in embodying the trust of the people in parliamentary functioning and the institution of parliament, the temple of democracy. For now, it's a wrap from me and Manoj. That's it from us on this broadcast. Thank you, Mr. Shankar. Thank you, Professor Chaudhary, for joining us with insights on such a significant democratic process that draws to a close. The results have, of course, given all the reason to the NDA to cheer on. It's a wrap from this, viewers. Thank you very much for your time as well.
Ultimate goal is concerned, I think none of us need have any apprehension. None of us need have any doubt. But my fear, which I must express clearly, is this. Our difficulty, as I said, is not about the ultimate future. Our difficulty is how to make the heterogeneous mass that we have today take a decision in common and march in a cooperative way on that road which is bound to lead us to unity. Our difficulty is not with regard to the ultimate. Our difficulty is with regard to the beginning. Mr. Chairman, therefore, I like a strong, united center.
India, also known as Bharat, is the world's biggest democracy, proudly called the mother of democracy. Around 75 years ago, when we gained independence from the colonial rule, the country needed a new direction, a new vision. This vision came in the form of the Constitution, our guiding light, our living document. Crafted under the leadership of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the Constitution laid foundation of just, equal and inclusive India. It promised no matter where we are born, every citizen of the country will have equal rights and opportunities. Namaskar, hello and welcome to the special broadcast on Sansad TV. I am Namrata Singh. And to honor this remarkable journey of the Indian Constitution, from its making to its impact on the Republic, Sansad TV brings you this special series. Each episode embarks on a 20-year chapter in this journey.
India's constitution is the longest written constitution in the world, spanning approximately 1,45,000 words. It reflects the strength of our democracy, protects our country's rich diversity, and promotes unity and harmony. Our constitution makers drew inspiration from India's ancient values and culture, giving full respect to our traditions while building a modern democratic nation. For the past 75 years, it continues to be our most sacred text, not just a book of laws, but a modern reflection of India's timeless civilizational values. November 26, 1949, a date etched in history. On this day, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution of India. It came into force on January 26, 1950, giving birth to the Republic of India and marking the start of a new era, one of equality, justice, and liberty for all. November 26th is now celebrated as Constitution Day, reminding us of the values that define who we are as a nation. It's the day we honored the living document that has guided India's journey for the last 75 years through every challenge, every triumph, and every transformation. But the story of the Constitution began long before 1949. It was born out of the dreams of freedom fighters forged in the fire of the independence struggle. While August 15, 1947 marked the end of the colonial rule, the dream of self-rule had taken root much earlier in the hearts of millions who believed in an India governed by its own people with justice and dignity for all. This is the story of that dream, of how India chose democracy, of how our constitution became our voice, our shield, and our strength.
हमारे संविधान के प्रेम्बल की शुरुआत में जो वी द पीपल लिखा है, ये सिर्फ 3 शब्द नहीं है। वी द पीपल एक आह्वान है, एक प्रतिज्ञा है, एक विश्वास है।
To the common man of India, these words signify a new beginning, a guarantee that every citizen will be treated equally under the law. But drafting this powerful document was no easy task. Before even a single word was written, the Constituent Assembly studied some of the most notable constitutions of the world. These were broadly of 2 types, unitary and federal. India chose a unique path, a federal structure with a strong central authority and some unitary features. The Constitution created a parliamentary form of government with power shared between the Union and the states, formerly known as provinces. At the Union level, the President is the constitutional head of the executive. According to Article 79, the Parliament of India consists of the President and 2 houses, Rajya Sabha, Council of States, and Lok Sabha, House of the People. India's constitution is unique, not just in its content, but also in its spirit. It balances ancient values with modern governance, unity with diversity, and rights with responsibilities. Some important provisions, including those related to citizenship, elections, the provisional parliament, and transitional arrangements, came into effect on November 26, 1949, the day the Constitution was adopted. The rest, the heart of the Constitution, came into force on January 26, 1950. This day was carefully chosen. It was on January 26, 1930 that India had first declared Purna Swaraj, complete independence, at the Lahore session of the Indian National Congress. With the commencement of the Constitution, the Indian Independence Act of 1947 and the Government of India Act of 1935 were repealed. Only the abolition of Privy Council Jurisdiction Act of 1949 was retained. And thus, the Constitution of India came into full force, giving birth to the Republic, giving power to the people and marking the dawn of a new, sovereign, democratic nation.
Since its implementation, the Indian Constitution has undergone important transformations, especially between 1951 and 1970, which played a key role in shaping country's legal and political framework.
The period between 1950 and 1970 marks a critical phase in India's constitutional evolution. With the adoption of the Constitution, India emerged as a sovereign, democratic republic in 1950. But the first 2 decades tested the strength of its federal and parliamentary framework. The rising challenges, political, social, and regional, placed significant strains on the young democracy. To safeguard national unity and stability, a series of legal, political, and institutional reforms became necessary. When the Constitution came into force in 1950, it consisted of 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Over the years, amendments have increased the total to 448 articles, reflecting the nation's changing needs. The framers of the Constitution faced several critical challenges that they had to address while drafting the document. One of the major challenges facing newly independent India was its feudal system, which had severely damaged the social fabric of the country. Under this system, land ownership was concentrated in the hands of a few, while a vast majority of people depended on these landlords for their most basic needs. During British rule, farmers did not own the land they cultivated. Land was controlled by zamindars, jagirdars, and other large landowners. Leasing land to tenants was a common practice, but the system was exploitative. Contracts heavily favored landlords, and tenant farmers were often subjected to unfair treatment with little security or protection. The land revenue systems of British India, especially the zamindari system, became a major focus of the Indian freedom movement. After independence, the government recognized that dismantling the system was essential for ensuring justice and empowering rural India. In a historic move, the first amendment to the Constitution in 1951 modified Article 19 and 31, allowing states to pass land reform laws. This paved the way for the abolition of the zamindari system and the redistribution of land, a landmark step towards social and economic equity. One of the first major agricultural reforms introduced by the Government of India was the Zamindari Abolition and Land Reforms Act of 1950. It symbolized the beginning of a new era, where land, power, and opportunity were no longer concentrated in the hands of few, but shared more equitably among the people of India. However, the government faced significant challenges as land reform laws were met with strong resistance and swiftly challenged in courts, leading to legal hurdles that delayed their implementation. One of the most notable legal challenges came in the case of State of Bihar versus Kameshwar Singh. Singh, a prominent zamindar, contested the constitutionality of the Bihar Land Reforms Act 1950. He argued that the act was discriminatory towards zamindars, violated the right to equality under Article 14, and failed to provide just compensation for the property acquired, thus infringing upon his fundamental right to property. This landmark case became a defining moment in India's constitutional and legal history. The Supreme Court upheld the validity of the act, acknowledging the government's intent to promote agrarian reform and social justice. The judgment struck a delicate balance between protecting fundamental rights and enabling transformative laws aimed at reducing inequality. It set a crucial precedent for future land acquisition cases and became a cornerstone in India's journey towards equitable land ownership.
There were people like Shankari Prasad in Bihar, 10,000-12,000 acres of land, Mithila, Punjab, everywhere. But at the same time, there was no land for large number of people. So it was decided, reforms were decided that we should have, if not equal, at least lot of redistribution of land. And that is how 1953 Act was brought in and it was passed. Zamindari Unmoolan, that was the thing.
The Constitution First Amendment Act of 1951 made key changes to the Indian Constitution. There were 3 fundamental changes made in the Constitution through its amendments. It allowed for restrictions on freedom of speech and expression, protected land reform laws from judicial review, and clarified the right to equality by allowing special provisions for the most vulnerable sections of society. Introduced in Parliament on May 12, 1951, the Constitution First Amendment Act of 1951 sought to amend several articles including 15, 19, 85, 87, 174, 176, 341, 342, 372 and 376. It also inserted articles 31A and 31B and introduced the 9th schedule to the Constitution. 9th schedule was added to protect the land reforms and other laws included in it from the judicial review. In addition, the Constitution First Amendment Act of 1951 also provided that state trading and nationalization of any trade or business by the states is not to be invalid on the ground of violation of the right to trade or business.
India's first general elections were held from October 1951 to February 1952. These elections were conducted under the provisions of the newly adopted constitution and marked the beginning of country's democratic journey.
Though the elected leaders of a free nation enjoy the confidence of their people, it is the people themselves, unknown and unsung, who weave and wear the fabric of democracy. What follows here is the record of such a people, the people of our nation who played a worthy, active part in a great experiment, the experiment of free India's first general elections.
After gaining independence, India faced the critical task of electing a truly representative government through universal adult suffrage. The first general elections held between October 25, 1951 and February 21, 1952 became a landmark moment in the nation's history. For the first time under the framework of the newly adopted constitution, millions of Indians exercised their right to vote. This constitution had established India as a sovereign, democratic republic, adopting a parliamentary system of governance. Conducting free and fair elections to choose members of the first Lok Sabha was essential to bringing the democratic principles of the constitution to life. These elections were more than a political process. They were a monumental democratic experiment, the largest ever undertaken in human history. They marked the true beginning of the India's democratic journey, a powerful expression of the people's will and the visionary constitution that gave them that voice. The entire electoral exercise in India rests on 3 pillars. Article 326 of the Constitution, the Representation of the People Act 1950, and the Representation of the People Act 1951. Together, these provide the legal and constitutional framework for free and fair elections. Notably, to keep pace with evolving electoral needs, Both the RP Acts were last amended in 2021 through the Election Laws Amendment Bill 2021. The amendments aim to bring in key electoral reforms. The Representation of the People Act 1950 deals with the allocation of seats, delimitation of constituencies, voter qualifications, and the preparation of electoral rolls. The Representation of the People Act 1951 governs the conduct of elections as well as electoral offences, disputes, and related procedures. These reforms represent the continuous effort to strengthen the integrity, inclusivity, and efficiency of India's electoral system. The preparation for India's first general election was nothing short of monumental. With a vast and diverse population, many of whom were illiterate and unfamiliar with voting, the task demanded vision, scale, and precision. The newly formed Election Commission of India, established in 1950, took on this historic challenge. At its helm was Sukumar Sen, India's first Chief Election Commissioner, whose leadership was pivotal in navigating the enormous logistical demands of the exercise. Conducted in multiple phases from October 25, 1951 to February 21, 1952, the election spanned the length and breadth of the country. This phased approach was essential due to limited infrastructure and the massive scale of operations. Nearly 173 million people were eligible to vote, contesting 489 seats in the first Lok Sabha. This historic event shaped the political landscape of post-independence India and emerged as an example for budding democracies around the world. Its legacy continues to guide India's democratic journey to this day.
You and I, all of us, are born equal, with the right to live freely and with dignity. Our Constitution protects these rights, built on the powerful idea of live and let live. To give this idea a legal force, the Protection of Civil Rights Act was enacted in 1955 to put an end on untouchability and protect equality. So let's rewind to 1955 and take a closer look at what this landmark law was all about.
In the Constituent Assembly, Sardar Patel moved that the clause for the abolition of untouchability be incorporated into the Constitution.
The Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1955, originally known as Untouchability Offences Act, aimed to abolish the practice of untouchability and its associated disabilities. In 1976, it was amended and renamed to its current title, reflecting a broader commitment to safeguarding civil rights, especially those of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, beyond just abolishing untouchability. It criminalizes untouchability and penalizes any form of discrimination based on it.
In 1955, social discrimination was completely done away with. You could not, आपने सुना होगा, मंदिर में जाने के लिए मना करते थे. People were lower caste people, not in all temple, some temple only. People were not allowed to go to the temple, or maybe even water fetching from the wells. So this amendment went into a long way, eradicating the discrimination against the underprivileged people. I will call them underprivileged because they didn't have enough land, or they were laborers, or social, जिसको कहें discrimination, was there. Desire was that ultimately India will achieve a state of caste-less society. जाति विहीन समाज भारत का होगा. And Ambedkar's dictum was repeated again and again, annihilation of the caste.
Main provisions of the PCR Act are as follows. Section 3 to 7A of the Act list actions considered offences if done on the grounds of untouchability. Section 3, denying entry to places of public worship or access to sacred water sources. Section 4, refusing access to shops, hotels, public restaurants, entertainment venues or cremation grounds. Section 5, denial of admission to hospitals, dispensaries and educational institutions. Section 6, refusal to sell goods or provide services. Section 7, molestation, injury or insult based on untouchability. Section 7A, forcing someone to do scavenging, sweeping or dispose of carcasses. To ensure effective enforcement, the Protection of Civil Rights Rules 1977 and the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Rules 1995 were also introduced.
The States Reorganization Act of 1956 was a major post-independence reform that redrew state boundaries based on language. It reshaped India's map to better reflect its linguistic diversity.
After independence, India inherited a patchwork of provinces and princely states drawn by colonial rulers with little regard for linguistic or cultural unity. This created widespread administrative challenges and public discontent. Post-1947, there was growing pressure to reorganize states based on language. Proponents argued that linguistic states would boost governance, preserve cultural identity and strengthen national unity. As the then government had promised that each major linguistic group would have its own province after independence, several commissions were formed to address the issue of state reorganization on a linguistic basis. The government established the Dhar Commission in 1948 to investigate the language as the basis for state formation. The Dhar Commission opposed using the language as the foundation for state reorganization. Post that, a JVP committee including Vallabhbhai Patel was formed to investigate the Dhar Commission report. The JVP committee too rejected language as a basis for reorganization, prioritizing national unity over regional identities. In 1953, the death of a freedom fighter, Poti Sriram Mullu, after a hunger strike for a separate Telugu-speaking state led to the formation of Andhra Pradesh. This triggered a nationwide demand for linguistic reorganization. The government responded by setting up the States Reorganization Commission in December 1953 under Fazal Ali with K.M. Panikkar and H.N. Kunzru. It submitted its report in September
நரேந்திர மோடிஜிக்கு நன்றியே, நன்றி நன்றி நன்றியே, நட்டாஜிக்கு நன்றியே, நன்றி நன்றி நன்றியே, என்டிஏ தலைவர்களுக்கு நன்றியே, நன்றி நன்றி சொல்ல திருப்பூரே திரண்டுள்ளோம், நன்றி 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 சொல்ல திருப்பூரே திரண்டுள்ளோம், வெற்றி வெற்றி வெற்றியே, திருப்பூருக்கு வெற்றியே, நன்றி நன்றி நன்றியே, மோடிஜிக்கு நன்றியே, வெற்றி வெற்றி வெற்றியே, மகிழ்ச்சி மகிழ்ச்சி மகிழ்ச்சியே, தமிழனுக்கு மகிழ்ச்சியே, மகிழ்ச்சி மகிழ்ச்சி மகிழ்ச்சியே, தமிழனுக்கு மகிழ்ச்சியே, பாரத் மாதா கி ஜெய். அண்ணா
வணக்கங்கண்ணா. இன்னைக்கு திருப்பூருக்கு உண்மையாலுமே தீபாவளி வந்துள்ளது. நமது மண்ணின் மைந்தர், திருப்பூரோட மண்ணின் மைந்தர், எங்களை எல்லாம் பாசத்தோடு இதுநாள் வரை வழிநடத்தி கொண்டிருந்த திரு CP ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் அண்ணன் அவர்கள் இன்னைக்கு துணை ஜனாதிபதியாக தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்டிருப்பது உண்மையிலேயே எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் மற்றற்ற மகிழ்ச்சியை கொடுத்திருக்கின்றது. குறிப்பாக திருப்பூர் மக்களுக்கு இது முதல்லயே வந்த ஒரு தீபாவளி. இந்த நேரத்தில் பாரத பிரதமர் திரு நரேந்திர மோடி அவர்களுக்கும் இந்த பாரதிய ஜனதா கட்சியுடைய தேசிய தலைவர் திரு நட்டாஜி அவர்களுக்கும் தேசிய ஜனநாயக கூட்டணியுடைய ஒவ்வொரு தலைவர்களுக்கும் 450 வாக்குகளை கொடுத்த அனைத்து எம்பிக்களுக்கும் இந்த நேரத்திலே எங்களது நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியை திருப்பூர் மக்களின் சார்பாக தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றோம். ஏன்னா சிறு வயது முதல் மக்களுக்காக பணியாற்றிய ஒரு உன்னத தலைவருக்கு இந்த மரியாதையை பாரத பிரதமர் திரு நரேந்திர மோடி அவர்கள் கொடுத்திருக்கின்றார். அவர் உழைப்புக்கு கிடைத்த வெற்றி. உண்மையாலுமே திருப்பூர் மக்கள் மகிழ்ச்சியுடன் உள்ளோம். என்றைக்கு அவர் திருப்பூர் வருகிறாரோ அன்றைக்கு 3வது தீபாவளியை கொண்டாட இருக்கின்றோம் என்பதையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறோம். நன்றி.
மோடிஜி வாழ்க.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். இன்னைக்கு உண்மையாலுமே திருப்பூர் மக்களுக்கு மகிழ்ச்சியான நாளாக மாறி இருக்கிறது. 40 நாட்களுக்கு முன்னாலேயே எங்களுக்கு தீபாவளியை கொண்டாடுகின்ற ஒரு தருணத்தை பாரத பிரதமர் அமைத்துக் கொடுக்கின்றார். மண்ணின் மைந்தர் திரு CP ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் அவர்கள் இன்னைக்கு துணை ஜனாதிபதியாக தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்டிருப்பது எங்களுக்கு மற்றற்ற மகிழ்ச்சியை திருப்பூர் மக்களுக்கு அளித்திருக்கிறது. உண்மையிலுமே இந்த வாய்ப்பினை திருப்பூர் மக்களுக்கும் தமிழர்களுக்கும் ஏற்படுத்தி கொடுத்த பாரத பிரதமர் திரு நரேந்திர மோடி அவர்களுக்கும் பாரதிய ஜனதா கட்சியுடைய தேசிய தலைவர் நட்டாஜி அவர்களுக்கும் தேசிய ஜனநாயக கூட்டணியுடைய அனைத்து கட்சிகளுடைய தலைவர்களுக்கும் வாக்களித்த அனைத்து எம்பிக்களுக்கும் இந்த நேரத்தில் எங்களது திருப்பூர் மக்களின் சார்பாக எங்களது நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறோம். திருப்பூர் மண்ணுக்கு இது பெருமை. கொடியாத்த குமரன் வாழ்ந்த இந்த மண்ணிலிருந்து இன்னைக்கு நாட்டை காக்கின்ற ஒரு உயர் பொறுப்புக்கு ஒரு மண்ணின் மைந்தராக திருப்பூர் திரு CP ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் சென்றிருப்பது எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் மற்றற்ற மகிழ்ச்சியை தருகிறது. என்ன பேசுறதுனே சொல்ல முடியாத அளவுக்கு நாங்கள் எல்லாம் சந்தோஷத்தில் இருக்கிறேங்க. அவர் இன்னும் 60-70 நாட்கள் கழித்து திருப்பூருக்கு வருவதாக கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கின்றோம். அன்றைக்கு 3வது தீபாவளியை திருப்பூர் மக்கள் கொண்டாட இருக்கின்றோம். அவர் வருகின்ற பொழுது மிகப்பெரிய வரவேற்பினை கொடுக்கின்றோம். ஏனென்றால் இந்த ஒவ்வொரு பகுதியிலும் என திருப்பூர் தான் இன்னைக்கு வளர்ந்த பகுதிங்க. அவர் சின்ன வயசுல இருந்தபோது வளர்ச்சி இல்லாமல் இந்த பகுதியில் ஒவ்வொரு இடத்துக்கும் அவர் சென்றிருக்கின்றார். அந்த மண்ணின் மைந்தன் திருப்பூருக்கு வருகின்ற பொழுது அவருடைய சிறு வயது முதல் இன்று வரை அவர்